was successfully conducted on the 29th of November under the theme, The Role of Chemical Engineers in Combating the Climatic Crisis, addressed by Dr. Tharindu Dasun Pereira. And for anyone interested, we have entered the link of the previous session in the chat box. Today, we are going to commence the second chapter of the talk series, Isotalks No, to address the theme, Ready to Step Out to the Industry, in collaboration with the Industrial Training and Career Guidance Unit of Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya. And now I invite Dr. M.M.G.V. Shyamali from the Industrial Training and Career Guidance Unit to welcome everyone and elaborate the importance of this session to our undergraduates.
Thank you, Hasmi. Good evening to you all. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the session on Ready to Step Out to the Industry, organized by the Society of Chemical and Process Engineering students together with the Industrial Training and Career Guidance Unit, that is ITCGU, at the Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya. First, as the director of the ITCGU, I would like to warmly welcome Engineer Sithila Dissanayake, Director Technology Innovation at Mahaskeenary, as the resource person for the session today. Ms. Sithila, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and agreeing to conduct this session for our students who are about to go for training. I highly appreciate your presence as the resource person today. You also might know that the training program of our third year students will commence from 3rd January 2022 for 20 weeks at a single stretch this time. In previous years, we conducted this training program as 2 sessions. However, during their training, students are expected to gain certain practical skills and practical knowledge and experience, personal attitudes, and experience of professionalism to some extent. While achieving these outcomes, in these pandemic situations, students have to take care of themselves and make safe the others who are working with them at the training organization. With these concerns, the ITCGU invited Chemical and Process Engineering Society to join with us and organize this kind of session, which will be useful for them to make aware with how to get the maximum out of industrial training in this pandemic situation. I am happy that students did it well. Therefore, I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Nadish and the committee of the Chemical and Process Engineering Society for their commitment in organizing this event and their fullest cooperation with us in this regard. I hope that students will have a very valuable and very good interactive session with the resource person. And also, I hope that the students will get the maximum out of this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. And now to begin with the session today, it is my honor to have the opportunity to introduce our guest speaker today for Isotalks No, Ms. Sithila Dissanayake. Ms. Sithila Dissanayake graduated from the University of Peradeniya with a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering. Soon afterwards, she embarked on her career path with the purpose to create and use technology to make this planet a better place. Ever since then, she has had numerous career experiences in many sectors such as textile and clothing, enterprise resource planning, and management consulting. Meanwhile, she also completed CIMA in 2005 and received her PMP certification in 2010. And at present, she is working as the Director of Technology Innovation at MAS Twinally. Abiding by her career purpose, Ms. Sithila Dissanayake is currently carrying projects on innovating a water-free, waste-free technology for clothing functionalization. So this is our guest speaker for the second session in Isotalks. And without any further ado, let's warmly welcome our speaker, Ms. Sithila Dissanayake. Madam, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Hasini. I'll start my video. Can you guys hear me? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aruna. So, Hasini, just let me know if there's any technical glitches, if you can't hear me, if you can't see my screen and such. I will share the screen. And I think once I start sharing, I won't be able to see the chat. So if there are any questions on the chat, or if anyone's raising the hand to ask a question, please let me know, Hasini.
Okay, Madam, sure.
You can see my screen, right?
Yes, Sithila.
Right. So I know there are some final year students as well as third year students in the audience. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this talk was actually more geared towards and prepared towards the final year students who are embarking on their job hunting and going into the industry. However, of course, this is, I'm sure it's useful for third year guys who are going for their industrial training as well. Sorry. For third years, most probably the most important part would be like how you can bridge that gap from your academic learning period to going into the industry, which you can do a lot during your training as well. So that bridging the gap section would be more important for third years as well. And let me just start by saying I'm not a stranger to who you are, what you are today. I also have been in your shoes, of course, a long time back. But of course, I also have been like you at one time, where the Explorers Club hikes and the university games are much more important than lectures, for example, right? So we all go through that phase. And we had much, not even like you guys, we had very limited exposure to the outside world. And we had very little knowledge about what careers out there. So I think it's good that you have this kind of opportunities. And I thank the director who just spoke before me and welcomed me also for having this kind of career guidance programs in the university. It is quite important. Having said that, though my profile is here, I first want to tell you, give a little pep talk. It's what defines you is not your name, not your family or your city where you come from, or even not even your qualifications. So what would define you? What I believe is what defines me is how I feel about myself, how others feel about myself, and what my behavior is, and how positively impactful I am to the world. That's what defines me. So that is my belief. So I think all that is what defines you is how impactful you are, how positively impact you are to the world. And your knowledge, your qualifications, what you have learned will help you a lot to be impactful. However, to somebody to listen to you, you have to build credibility first. When you go out to the industry also, you'll have to do that. So for you to listen to me, I am showing off my experiences and what I am doing here in this profile so that I can build credibility first so that you will listen to me. So what I'm going to do today is to mostly share my experience. Please unmute yourself and ask anytime, please ask questions. If there are very lengthy answers that I have to give you, in the interest of time, I'll tell you, let's have that conversation separately. If not, I'll of course answer the questions then and there. I would like to answer all the questions then and there. So when you say sharing experiences, you know that it is said that if you learn from your experience, you are really smart. However, if you learn from others' experiences, you are smarter, you are better, you are wiser. So that's why I'm inviting you to learn from my experience. So let's get into this content of the presentation today. So first, I'll be talking to you about the different kind of careers out there. Let's talk a bit about what is the playing field is like out there. Of course, it's not like the uni. It's not like where you are today, right? And then let's understand what are you fighting for, and then there are others who are fighting for the same thing that you want, right? And then let's look at how you can bridge this gap, right? So most time will be spent on this bridging, how we bridge the gap. It's like about personal branding, what your technical skills should be, what your soft skills should be, and then how you would adapt to the industry out there. So first, when you say there's industry, so there's a huge, I would call a jungle out there, right? And there are different kind of trees. So if you look at the industry landscape, first you have the academia. You can go to the academia, or you can go to the industry. When you go to the industry, there are service-based industries like the telecom, to the water board, to all these service-oriented ones. Then there are non-service-oriented ones like what I am in. So we are manufacturing a product. So they are not service-oriented industries. Then you think more about these things. There are government. You can go to government careers. You can go for-profit organizations, where I'm coming from, for example, or you can go to not-for-profit organizations like for example, Sri Lanka Red Cross. So there are so many different kind of ownership coming to organizations, and you can start your own business, right? You can become your own entrepreneur. So there are these different kind of organizations. Then there are very highly technical organizations where you have highly technical careers, versus there are very general kind of careers that you can find. Then in this different landscape, again, there are careers. However, in any type of this, people management, it might not be that when you join, you are a manager and you have hundreds of people under you, but still you have to manage people. When you say managing people, it is not just giving directions, how you influence, how you win them, how you communicate, all this coming under these people management skills, right? And then there are task-oriented or operational-oriented management that you have to do. Mostly you have to do this operational work when you join. Then there are technical expertise, where more technical expertise coming into, versus this operational management. So in any of these industries, any of these kind of different companies, different kind of services, kind of manufacturing organizations, you will still have people management, you will still have technical expertise versus operational management work. Then when you go into the industry in companies, you will see that there's some companies would have, there's a technical ladder versus a management ladder. So you can still do management. You can go to technical ladder, where you have to be more technically thorough. We have to be really good at your discipline. versus where you manage more operational things or people, right? And then another thing that you might want to think about now itself is whether you want to go up the hierarchy or whether you want to be more impactful. So going up the hierarchy doesn't mean necessarily that you are impactful. So for example, let's say a scientist who has found the COVID vaccination, for example, didn't have thousands and thousands of people working for that person, and that person was not the CEO or the head of engineering or head of finance. So hierarchically, that person was not high up in the hierarchy in the organization. However, the impact, not just to the organization, but to the world that scientists have brought in is so huge. So it is something that you might want to think about is what you want to do. So where you fit. So we'll discuss more about in the coming slides. So think about, and something that might put you off in the industry, you might see there are titles, there are grades, right? So sometimes you might be called an engineer, right? That is your title. However, there might be engineers in different levels. For example, you might have a title called junior engineer, engineer, and senior engineer. However, senior engineers also can be managers, can be deputy general managers, general managers. So your title versus grade, there's a difference. So your title could be engineer. However, your grade, your compensation, your benefits that you get would be, or a manager grade, you'd be an assistant manager grade, or even the executive grade. So there are different grades, but the title could be the same. So there are these different things that you would hear, you might be able to understand in your first year or so. So it's good to get a hang of these things in whatever the organization that you go for training, so that you understand when you go for training, you will understand how it works out there. So there are no right jobs and wrong jobs. There are no right things to do and wrong things to do. It is about what you like to do and what you are good at doing. So sometimes there can be things that you are good at doing, but you might not like doing it. So that's fine. So you have to find your fit. That is the most important thing. And on all these areas, I am just putting something in, not in black, but in colorful things. So if you want to forget everything that I talk about and everything I show here in black, forget everything, but just take that essence which is coming in color. So I have seen in social media and all that, there's a lot of talk about whether you're working for a company or are you working for your boss. What would make people work better? What would make people leave companies? But my take on this is work for a purpose. So it doesn't matter, because bosses can change. Companies can be there today, they might not be there the next day, and you might want to change the company you want to work for, right? But work for a purpose, what you want to achieve in your career, in your life. I think that what matters more. And then always then you'll have a goal to work for. So you will not get demotivated by things that we think very, very big and very large things, that when, for example, if your company closes down, or if your department that you work for is getting reduced, the size getting reduced, and it's not being appreciated all the time. So these things matter if you are not sure what your purpose is. So it's very important to work for a purpose. So even when you go to training, you might even not know the purpose today. So that is the other thing. You are just entering the industry, right? So it's okay to explore and change. Don't think that you go to, let's say, to a company, I don't know, let's say you're going to Dialogue to work for. You go to manufacturing of food industry. But when you explore it, when you understand this industry, when you understand the company, what you can do, maybe after years you understand, no, this is not what I want to do. That's fine. Explore and don't be afraid to change your careers. Don't be afraid to change things. So what I see is we meet a lot of people who are not happy in their careers, who are not impactful in their careers. So what I see is failure is doing something that you don't like just for material benefits. You do years and years of your life, you dedicate to a career that you are not happy in that career. Failure is not changing jobs. Failure is not that you are going from a manager position to an assistant manager position in a different place. That's not a failure. So be bold enough to explore and then change when you feel it's right. Are there any questions? Or if there are questions, I don't see if you are raising your hand and such. I don't see because I see the screen, the presentation. So please ask questions.
Sithila, Aruna is here, and thank you very much for your insightful mini-TED talk. I totally agree with you, and it's all about finding your ikigai. That will make your life. And thank you very much for your starting mini-TED talk.
Thank you. Can I proceed, or Hasini, are there any questions?
Madam, still there are no questions in the chat box. If there are any, I will inform you.
Right, thanks. So then I'm coming next to understanding playing fields, right? There are different cultures and values in the corporate world. So you have to find your right fit. So when you say it's a culture, it's a collection of values, it's a collection of expectations from the workforce, and of course the practices and behaviors in a company. So depending on who their customer is, for example, CEB's customer is the general public, right? And then, for example, but then Dialogue's customer is also the general public. But then how they work, their work culture, their work ethics are very different. So there are different, the customer as well as what make them successful and how they are funded, what the ownership is. So these things come into play when the organization's culture is determined, right? So these things, understand these things when you go into an organization, and imagine what kind of cultures you'd like to work in, right? So this one thing is for sure, there are no universities in the corporate world, right? And even state-owned organizations are not, it's not that everybody around you are also your friends, and your lecturers would somehow teach you. So that kind of culture is not out there. They have different purposes. For these organizations have their goals and purposes, so that you have to understand what kind of cultures you would like to work in. For example, in the organization I work, even the organization's owner who has a title like Deshamanya, but we just call him by his first name. Everybody is in first name basis. So there are so many PhDs working in our organization. They're also in first name basis. So everybody is in first name basis. So that is coming with the culture. So as I told you earlier, what defines them is what they bring into the table rather than what their title is. So it is not any disrespect. We give the same respect to everybody. So who's bringing us tea is, we call him also by first name. Our chairman is also, we call him by first name, but then we respect all of them for what they do, what they bring into the table. So however, in a state-owned organization, you might say your immediate boss you have to call Mr. If that person is a director, you have to call them sir. So there are different work cultures. So by the way that they call people itself might give you hints of the culture. So you can, when you go for your trainings also, you can understand, okay, so this is how it works here, right? So you have to again find your fit, where you would like to work. So that's why I'm saying, study these corporate cultures. There are some cues that they are around you always, which gives you understanding or insights into these cultures. However, in whatever the culture, again, this is the 2 points that you can take away if you can forget all the earlier ones that I discussed here. Avoid politics and religion in office. These are very personal things. Politics, you might say, is not personal, but in Sri Lanka, at least it's personal. But even in other countries, if you're working in another country, avoid these two areas in office, because these become personal and they are not really relevant to what you want to do here. So these things are things that you should avoid speaking in office. Leave them for your chats after, like after work, at drinks. Again, at drinks, if you are going with your office friends, you don't talk these things. Leave these things to talk with your actual friends. These are not topics for the office chat, right? And another thing that you have to be very critical in your start, mainly, is not just in start of your career, but it matters a lot when you start your career. Be broad-minded. Be broad-minded, because not that everyone is like you. Not that everyone listen to logic. That is something that I had for a long time. I thought if my argument, what I present is logical, everyone will buy it. No, it's not, right? Because we come from very analytical and logical backgrounds and thinking, and we could score well in our exams because if we are logical and if we can prove things logically, we think that will win everywhere. That is the right path to approach everyone, but it's not. So sometimes the way that you have to tell your story, how you have to convince, is very different. So be broad-minded and understand that everyone is not like you. They don't have the same understanding of things, same capability of understanding your logics. And they don't have to be that way either, right? If all of they are engineers in an organization, that organization will not be successful. So they don't have to be like us either, but you have to accept that everyone is not like you. So these are the two key things that you have to understand, keep in your mind, and behave accordingly, think accordingly also. Can I move on? Is there any question? Hasini, please tell me. Anyone want to ask any question?
Still, there are no questions, ma'am, in the chat box.
Right. So usually, Hasini, is it in the chat box that you have questions? There are no questions asked like in person?
Madam, we asked them to put them in the chat box so they can unmute their mic and ask the questions at that moment.
All right. So please talk over me. This is not a lecture like you have in your lecture room. So you talk over me and say, Sithila, please stop. I have a question. Whenever you have a question, don't wait till I ask. If there's a question, please tell me. If I'm too fast, if I'm not explaining things good enough, please tell me. Right. So then what is the competition out there? It's not that what we can, whatever we want, we can get also, right? So I'm sure that you know there are other people who want the jobs that you want, the careers you want, right? So who are these competition? Who is the competition? Of course, there are people coming from local universities, local engineering graduates, as well as people coming from outside. And when you want a job, there are people who have already been in the industry who are coming and competing for those things also. So, right. Sorry, there are competition, what is different? What is the differentiator that you have? What is the edge you have? So can you be better than them in everything? Most probably not, right? So what's the differentiation that I see in Peradeniya graduates? So I interview a lot of people for our companies, mostly people who are in my teams. They are either scientists with PhDs, engineers, or people from technical colleges, right? So from around the world. So most of the time, what I see, the differentiator or the edge, the benefit you guys have, I see Peradeniya graduates have the knowledge. You guys can go into fundamentals and analyze something and come up with a solution. So that's a very good skill. It is not like somebody from a technical college that's coming out who can just execute things when they are given. When they're given a problem, they cannot go back to fundamentals, analyze it, and come up with a solution. They might not be very good at it, but Peradeniya graduates are good at it. So use that as a weapon. And the other thing is, as individuals, you might have other differentiators and your skills, your individual skills. Let's talk about later how you use your individuality. However, in general, Peradeniya graduates are good in understanding problems, going to fundamentals and analyzing things and bringing in solutions. I think that's the best differentiator. Highlight that not only in your talk, in your interview, but when you do your work also, show that skill. Don't be afraid to do that. So you might not be able to do everything better than everybody else, but then find your niche, find your what you're good at, and go for it. And next, I'm going to just talk about the simple tips to face interviews. So I haven't done all this when I was going for my first interviews, not the first interview, the interviews that I have faced. So number one is prepare. You have studied so many difficult things, right? So preparing and studying the organization that you're going for an interview is not a big thing. Go online, find out about the organization, find out about that organization from the people that you know who are in the organization. Even ask questions from the person who called you to tell you the interview time is this, come at this time. So somebody from HR, like human resource department, would call you to give you the interview, right? So ask questions from that person, and you can ask what kind of an organization is you. Do you have to come in very formal attire for the interview? Basically, like if you're a girl, whether you have to go into sari and such. It's good to understand. And human resource people, they don't laugh at you. Don't think that you can't ask questions. You can. So ask whether I have to come in a jacket, whether I have to come in jacket in a sense, in a suit, right? How casual is your interview process is. However casual the organization is, you have to be on time. You are given a time, you have to be on time and dress properly and be confident. That matters most. Be confident, be confident in your skin. Like, you have to be confident when you're going for an interview. When you're introducing yourself, other than your final year project, all that, leave it for the later conversation. When you're introducing yourself, is not more than the what you call the education you have. Talk about what motivates you. Talk about your passion, right? Those things matter now. It's because with all the democratization of information, the knowledge, actually you can get knowledge a lot. However, that what motivates you, what you're passionate about matters to organizations a lot. So talk about them when you're introducing yourself, not just the typical introduction of your name, school, how many people in the family, what city you are from. Don't spend a lot of time on that. Talk about what motivates you, what you're passionate about. Then in the interview, at some point, you should tell them why they should hire you. Because when we interview so many people, right? So why should I hire you? So you should also tell why they should hire you. What you are bringing to the table, you have to talk about. And ask questions. In most of the interviews, they always ask you, do you have any questions to us? So usually in these interviews, the first question, even on top of your mind, might be the salary, but please don't ask that question first. Ask questions that matter. Like, don't ask questions like in how many. So there are some people who come to me. Their first question would be when I ask, okay, is there any other questions you have? How many years it would take to become a manager? So right now, there are no such thing. If you are really good, you can become a manager in a year, right? And it depends on not only how good you are, but it depends on where the organization is, what external factors, what might happen in the industry, in the world. So there are so many other factors in that. So that kind of questions are not really relevant in the interview, to be honest, right? So ask the questions about the industry, about that organization. You told that what motivates you, and then you can ask about like these motivation factors. Would you be able to work on those things? What kind of lateral careers that you can move to later? Things like that. And don't try to give answers that you think that the interviewer want to hear, because though you do not realize, as a person, I have been interviewing hundreds of people, right? So I can, so I'm sure all the others also in the industry can sense when you're answering, giving the answer that I want to hear rather than your answer. So don't try to give the answer that they want to hear. So be confident, be honest, and of course, be professional, but don't be arrogant. I'm not saying here you have to be arrogant, but please don't try to answer about what others want to hear. And of course, this is very important. Being good in languages always help, right? So I'm not saying you have to speak like the best English educated person in the world or so. However, articulating well what you have to express, it really matters. So you are never too late. Please, because you guys all have done this degree in English, right? And so communicating in day-to-day life language, there's no way that you can't learn good English. And every idiot in the US, so every idiot in the UK, they speak English, right? So all of you can be really fluent in English. So please give it a try. Being good in languages always help. Whether you are doing a technical job or whether you are doing a management job. In management job, you might think it's much more important. However, even if you're going to do a technical job, having good language skills really help. So please, it's never too late. Always try to improve your language. It makes a big difference. Are there any questions, or can I move on to how to bridge the gaps?
And again, this invitation for the audience, if you have any questions, you can unmute your mic, and or else you can put them in the chat box.
Sithila, it's Anush here. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So you said that you interviewed a lot of our graduates, Peradeniya graduates. So you talked about the positive things they have. If you don't mind, can you tell us like what kind of negative things that you saw in them?
Right. Anush, let me see if I am covering them in the how to bridge gap section. I think I
Oh,
am.
okay, yeah, it's okay.
Yes,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
I will
okay.
highlight it, Anush, there.
Yeah,
For
okay.
sure.
Thanks, Sithila. Thanks.
That's okay. Okay. Right. So how do we bridge this gap? So number one, that we call this personal branding, right? So this is something, again, Anush, this is one thing that we are not good at, because we are very good at what we learn in our education and such. We think we don't have to brand ourselves. However, all of you are unique individuals. Yes, all of you are engineers. However, you have your unique. There's a hand raised. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. I have a question about the interviews.
Mhm.
Ma'am, in the interview, if we were asked something that can you do this for our company, likewise, like promising statement, for the first time that we think saying no is not a good thing. So we say, yes, I will do. So in case in the later period, in the training period, if I am not unable to do that one, will it be a bad impression in the future career?
Very good question. So when you are asked whether you can do this, it might be a specific task, it might be a general thing, right? If it's a specific task, of course you can answer from your this little information I have today. I think this is the problem, so yes, I should be able to. Might not be by myself, however, when I understand the problem better, I should be able to work on that, right? You can say that. And when you go into the when you join, you might see your skill is not enough to solve the problem. You need other skills coming in, right? So again, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. What we do is, now this is accepted in industry anywhere. You make a proposal and you show what capabilities should be there to solve that problem, right? So then you say these are the capabilities needed. However, out of these 5 things, I can do these 3 things. For these 2 things, we need to get a contract consulting, or we have to get someone from outside to give us this, right? So when you do a small proposal and say this is how it's done, right? So that is not, then you will not be looked at as a promise breaker also, right? Organizations, managements are actually much more mature. Most of the time they are much more mature, right? So you can always do that. So don't worry about it. When you say I can do that, again, because most probably at an interview they would not tell you all the information also, right? So they would give you general this thing. So you can say, given about what you are talking about is something like this, I believe I can solve it, or I can come up with a solution for that.
Madam, excuse me, ma'am, for
Yeah.
interrupting. Uh, the one is the project is my own project. I explained it in the interview, and they asked from
Right.
me whether I can do it for their company likewise within the
Yes.
20. Yeah.
Yes, then you can say yes, most probably yes. If I need, if you don't have people who are good at some other, because what you are doing in your project is, I would call it a lab scale one, right? Now you have to go and scale up and you have to commercialize it. So when you go to commercializing and scaling up things, there are other problems that's coming in. It is not like doing it at the prototype stage, right? So you can say yes, we can apply this. However, when we go to go to your company, we'll understand your company and what you have there. So we can see that for sure. Most probably you would not have all the information about the company and their infrastructure and everything at the interview. If they give you, of course, you'll have to do the assessment. Or you can say, okay, I'll send you a questionnaire, right? I'll send you a questionnaire. Give me 1 week. I'll assess and tell you whether we can do it or not. If that is something specific like that, you can always answer that. You don't have to give an answer then and there either.
Yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you.
And excuse me, madam, there is another question in the chat box. And
Okay.
this question is from Aquila Lakshan. And his question is, what are the challenges that an undergraduate will have to face when entering the industry for the first time? And how should we prepare for that?
Right. I am addressing it in the gap bridging stage. So we'll discuss the Aquila. Right. So when you're going in first, you have to manage your online presence. So because a lot of companies now look at your online presence. So their LinkedIn is very important. Have your LinkedIn profile polished up. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please create one. And there are so many YouTube videos and such telling you how to create one. So please create your LinkedIn profile and maintain it. And also other social media also has an impact on what you do. It doesn't mean that you have to be like a TikTok idol or Insta influencer and such. However, for example, in our company, HR goes and checks your social media profiles to see that if you are a match, right? So don't make your Facebook profile or Insta profile public if you don't really want to make it public. If you are an artist or so, you might make it public. However, your personal one, keep it to your friends. That might be the safer method to go about your personal social media. LinkedIn, please keep your LinkedIn very professional. That matters, right? And now I'm going to answer your question also, Aquila. So in technical, when it comes to technical skills, you have to be really good at what you do. So basically what you say is, you might have heard this, you should know your shit. You have to be good at, you are saying you are a chemical and process engineer, you have to know your discipline. You have to be knowledgeable about current trends, new techs coming in, what are the pros and cons of current the way of doing things, what are the pros and cons of new techs. So you have to know about these things in your discipline, right? And you have to have the ability and willingness to learn new things when you are new. This is very important because again we'll be talking about this, that we are not taught a vocation in engineering, right? We are taught fundamentals, and we have to know how to apply these fundamentals. That is what we are taught. When we go to the corporate as a new person, you don't know to do things in the industry. If you really, I was giving this example like recently, the cleaner that's being sent from Abans to clean the washrooms in our organization knows much better than me in that space, because that's person's vocation. They are trained to do that, but I'm not trained to do that, right? So now you are new to everything. Starting from there, if you look at the machine operators, then you look at the technicians, they are all trained to do that when you go new to the organization. So these things, you are an engineer, you can catch them much faster, but have that open-minded and be ready to learn things. These things will come in handy, whatever. So your learning doesn't stop after you graduate, right? You have to learn these things. It will be useful all the time. In the future, it will be really useful for you. So be a sponge and learn things when you go. Even if you're changing the industry later, these things will come in handy. So when you are new, this is, I think it's a must. Be ready to learn. Then common sense, that we cannot teach this anywhere, but always common sense prevail. That's in whatever the job that you are going to do. I think 90 or 95% should come through common sense. The other 5% is the technical skill that you have to bring in. So please don't try to be not to listen to others and such. This common sense is very important. Use it. You all have it. Please use it. Then looking at soft skills and attitude. So Aquila, your question, and Anush, your question earlier. These are things that we are not very good at. Because what I see is engineering and these soft skills, they don't really go hand in hand either. So naturally, we are not very good at these things also. However, it is not, these are things that that you can grow in yourself, that you can learn and you can do, right? So something that we are not good at, and even before going to interviews, and as well as when you are a newbie in the corporates, communication is really important. When you say communication, it's not only talking, it's not only speech, but writing as well as body language. So these things are very important, right? And dressing well does not mean that you have to go in branded clothing, expensive clothing. It's not. But dressing properly is important. Having like cleanliness and neatness is important. And as a person, you being healthy and well-groomed is important. So when I say well-groomed, it's again, I'm not saying that all the girls should have all their nails done every day and such. It's not that. But you have to be healthy and clean. So that's very important when you are a newbie, even afterwards, right? And you have to find where the line like there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, for example. So you have to be confident, but please don't be arrogant. It is not entertained anywhere other than maybe in a political career. Arrogance is not valued anywhere in the world, right? But be confident. Confident means that you know what you know, and you know what you don't know also, and you act accordingly. So be confident. And you have to be knowledgeable. You have to be knowledgeable about, not only about what you do, you have to be knowledgeable about the industry, what's happening out there, and not to be narrow-minded. So that is another soft skill that we have to maybe it's an attitude also. So if you are narrow-minded thinking, like what I do and I believe is the right thing, engineering is the best thing to do. It's so that kind of narrow-mindedness is not going to help. And one thing that I see in not specifically Peradeniya graduates also, not specifically, but then there's when you have no entitlement. For example, I see a lot of local graduates, not in engineering and such. However, that because I am a graduate, I have an entitlement kind of. But we are not entitled to anything, right? If you really look at, we have spent others' money to learn in the university. If you really look at it, your friends in school who are now doing jobs, who couldn't come to the university, they are the ones who are spending for your education. So all the entire country is actually spending on you. So actually you don't have an entitlement. We all have a responsibility, right? So because I'm a graduate, I have to have that kind of entitlement. Please don't have that. It's a skill that it's an attitude that we might have because we are in the university environment all the time. But when you go out there, be careful about it, and of course show what you can do and your potential. Believe in your potential and show what you can do. Then only you can get that entitlement later when you do things, right? You have to build credibility. And this is something very important as a new person that you should do also. Please make networks inside and outside your organization where you work. Now you are going for your industrial training. make networks. It's very important to make networks. So sometimes now there's a saying that they say, it is not what you know, it is who you know that matters, right? Because even if you don't have knowledge about something, you can call upon who have that knowledge. You can bring in that knowledge, you can bring in the right person, right? So for example, there are things that I want to do in the organization I'm in today. However, the technology, we are not the experts in some technology. We can't be experts in all the technologies. We can't have all scientists in the world, right? However, I have networks so that I'm not saying I know all the people around there and such. However, I can talk to someone who have that knowledge and say, okay, I want somebody in this area. I want someone, for example, plasma enhanced chemical vapor deposition is something that we work on. So I want some knowledgeable person in this area. So can you connect me with someone, right? So if I have the network, I can bring in the knowledge. So that making networks is very important. And when you are new, try to relate to others. When I'm saying relate to others, I'm not saying you have to go out, drink every day with them. You have to go out for coffee and shopping and such. It's not. It is about others do different work, have genuine interest in others' work. Understand, see what they are doing, ask about what they're doing. So that you can relate to them well. You can resonate with what they talk about. You can think in their shoes as well. And when you pitch your ideas, when you want to do something, it's easier to talk to them because you know what matters to them, right? And another thing is confidentiality in work and other ethics. So when you're working for a company, don't talk about what you do in your organization to others. That confidentiality matters. This is something that as if you're new to the industry, you might not realize, you might not know. And finally, never be scared to join a big organizations, right? So they ask whether you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond. So become a big fish in a big pond. So don't be afraid to join big organizations. It's again, as I said, exploring is not a bad thing. So join a big organization or a small organization, it doesn't really matter. So above all these, what matters most is the positive attitude, right? More than any skill, that positive attitude matters. That you can do, you want to do something, that matters most. So if you forget all these above black ones, just remember the red one on this. I think there are more questions, Hasini.
Yes, madam, there are no questions in the chat box. If you have any question, now you can get the chance by raising hand.
Madam, can I ask a question?
For sure, go ahead.
Yes, madam. When you were talking about the brand in the individuality, this is something regarding to that. And in your description also, I saw that you have mentioned the things that you are passionate about, such as coffee and hiking and such. So we have to enter that part into our CVs and resumes also. So how to choose which interest we should enter in our CVs and to give the best impression about that? Like we can't mention anything of our interests, and because some of them might not be professional enough. So
today's world, actually there's no such thing that is not professional and such. Don't worry about it. It gives you I don't know, for example, if you are saying weed, like drugs is your interest, might be a problem. If you're saying drinking is your interest, might be a problem. However, I don't think anything is not professional answer. This interest, actually, it gives you a way of having a conversation, breaking ice, we call it. So there's, what did you think about that might not be professional? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Pasindu, madam.
Yes, Pasindu. So what did you think that might not be very professional?
Madam, like if we mention something about like movies and some kind of music that might be not of
Oh
everyone's
my God,
taste.
there are like they're very good interests. We always talk about it. So for example, in our industry, like if you really look at movies, right? Whatever you see in science fiction or Marvel comics are the ones that become real technologies later. So there, and music is a real great interest to shorts. Don't worry about those things.
Yeah,
So
thank you, madam.
interest, there's no limit for that.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Anything else? And Aquila asked this question, right? Should you do as a new person? Is there any? Have I answered your question, Aquila? To answer your question, Anush, what Peradini graduates are not very good at, I think communication is one. Whereas foreign graduates they can do little but can talk about it as if they can do a lot. Our people are the other way around. They can do a lot, but speak very little of it.
Yeah, thanks, Sithila. Yeah.
So that is something. And then, of course, the language.
Yeah.
The command of language, it helps. If you are not very comfortable, you can of course might as well say, can we have the conversation in mother tongue, in Tamil or Sinhala? That's not a problem.
And madam, I think there is another question from Asanka Somanai.
Yes, Asanka, go ahead.
Madam, due to this COVID pandemic, from our batch, the majority of us did projects based on literature reviewing and simulation. So my question is that as chemical and process engineers, how will this affect to our career?
So Asanka, now
I'm not sure whether Sithila can answer that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is like what they're asking is they missed the research part. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you have an answer?
So what I think is, Asanka, I'll give a general answer to your question. Entire world understand that there were some batches who could not go into the industry to do projects, right? There was time that everyone had to do it differently. That is understood. So I don't think it's going to negatively affect you that you missed that. So I don't think that would be a problem as long as you can show your approach and such is rational and it's valid. Anush, do you want to add anything?
Yes, Sithila, I think now, even though they couldn't do like lab experiments, they kind of came up with very good projects and some even could publish, though they are like literature review kind of work, but some of them even could go to publication level. So I think, yeah, that in that way they gain a lot of skills. So that will be really beneficial.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That would not matter to your career much, Asanka, to be honest.
Okay, madam, I got it.
Yeah. So I think this is my final slide. So when you're adapting to corporates, you can't skip work. I have skipped so many 8 o'clock lectures, for example, but at work, it's not an excuse. If I have to start at 7 or 7:30, when we have calls with different countries, we have to take calls at 1 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. So we still do that, right? So you can't skip work, right? So that's number one. And understanding that fit into culture is important, what we talked about earlier. It doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice or compromise yourself for your value system. It is being adjusting, rather than, for example, I don't drink alcohol, right? However, when our teams go out, I go out with them. And of course, I'm not succumbing to what others say. Others can drink. I drink my orange juice, right? So that kind of things, it's not that you have to compromise your values, but you have to fit into the culture. And for example, if the culture is that everyone works late, for example, you might say this is not the culture that fits in. I can finish my work by 5:30 and I'm going home at 5:30. Just check whether that's acceptable. So if it is not something that's acceptable, of course we move on, right? And again, I'm saying that most of the companies are now multinationals, so language is key. So talking in different languages, or some identified languages, like some common languages, is a must. And there are diverse individuals. You have to adapt to that, respect others, and earn your respect. Respect is something that you own. It is not something that you can demand. And this is something, again, we are not very good at, Anush, getting credit for what we do. So you have to find subtle ways of getting credit for what you do. So in some organizations, you might come across people who would show what you did. I'm not saying here you have to go like always talk about what you do. It's not that. There are ways of getting yourself seen. So be talk when you have to talk, right? Because your language is not good, or you're not the most senior person at a meeting and such. Don't be insecure and not talk. And of course, take challenges. Don't worry about that. Don't be bold to take challenges. Even if you fail, you learn. The failure is not learning. If you're unable to learn, that is the failure. Not that some things will work, some things might not work, but don't be afraid to take challenges. And be shrewd, but do not be cutthroat. So what that means is you have to understand people, right? You have to understand what ticks them, what motivates others. For example, if you're going to get an approval for your project when you just joined the company, you want to do a project in your engineering work, what you have to tell the finance manager to get the project fund approval is not how fine the technology is, how super the solution is. It's not what you have to talk about. You have to talk to the finance manager. If you do this project, if you implement this, it saves this much money, right? That's being shrewd, right? That's being shrewd. So these are the things that you have to understand, what motivates others, what ticks others. And please be very clear on your priorities. So there are no right and wrong priorities, but be clear on your priorities. Whether your priority is getting married, having kids, building a house or a car, or if your priority is to go to the next level, becoming a senior engineer, or your priority is to work for a particular company, or to do a project, or starting your own business. So be clear on these priorities. Exploring is okay. So exploring also might come to your list of priorities. But have your priorities, and there are no right or wrong places or jobs out there, right? No wrong or right places or jobs out there. But there are suitable ones for you as individuals. For each and every individual, there are suitable ones, suitable jobs and suitable places. So that is something that we better have in our minds. Are there any questions?
Madam, I think Aloka Karunatilaka has the question.
Go ahead, Aloka.
Yes, madam. I heard about the Sri Lanka and other countries have different opportunities. I think. What is the main difference?
Look, when you see opportunities like in job markets, is it?
Yes, job market industry.
Oh yeah, of course. For example, in Sri Lanka, you would see that our industry is in different industries, right? But in other countries, the industries would be different. For example, if you look at the Middle Eastern countries, it's mostly oil and gas. So of course, there's chemical and process engineering jobs as well. And there are, if you look at a country like Australia, there's a lot of mining related jobs, right? So from country to country, this according to the industry, it's different. However, the basics, fundamentals, like what we talked about, the how you should adapt, how you should what soft skills you should have, they don't change, Alok. Those things would be the same.
Okay, madam, thank you.
Excuse me, madam, I have a question. It's
Sure.
regarding networking, madam. So is it like in the previous days, madam, when you have to like when you're talking with a senior person in a senior position, are we supposed to like address them as sir? And is it like we have to talk like in a different way? Like usually, madam, now I think the current situation is where you are very formal with your work partners, right, madam? So when networking with a senior person, how should it be done?
So it again depends on the organization culture, right? So in our organization, we don't call anybody sir, as I told you. And then they always talk about your personal things also. I'm not in Sri Lanka these days. So when I joined a call through Teams or Zoom or something last week, the chairman had already joined the meeting, and he asked me, how are you? So how's your husband? How's the weather there? Are you going for walks? I see your Insta photos. So it's a very informal. So I speak to him saying, yes, in this country, there's a phenomenon called La Nina. So it's raining here too much. So we talk about things. However, it depends. For example, in CEB, for example, right? You wouldn't have that culture. So even when I say networking, I'm not only talking about at events and parties. So that's different. I'll address that later. So even in meetings or events, when you are speaking to seniors, if it's an inside organization, you already know the culture, right? When you go first to an interview, you wouldn't know what the culture is, but from the HR person who's calling you to give you an interview, you can ask that, right? How do you usually address? And even when people come to our interviews, they first call us madam, sir, and then we say, no, you don't have to call us that. You can call us by our names. We don't think ill of it, right? So if we are not sure what the culture is like, it might be good to call them Mr. Sir, and then they will tell you, no, you don't have to call me by first name. We are on first name basis. At an event, if you meet someone from outside, not from your organization, but from a different organization, it's always good to call Mr. or Miss or whatever with that title. It depends on, yes, when you start talking, you can start talking about something general, right? Again, not politics or religion, though they are very general topics in some places. Start about, I don't know, about rupee devaluation, or the supply chain is vastly affected because of the shipping and Chinese problems, right? So that is how you can professional Alok. You start with a general conversation first. Then when you move on to talk, then that person would ask you, where did you do your degree? Okay, you are where, like, so what are your sports? What sports do you do? That kind of things come later. So start with general things, irrespective of the level. So those general topics would be fine.
Thank you, madam.
So that's why we have to know about a bit more than our engineering technical topics. When you network, those things also matter. Yes, Tilangi.
Tilangi, now you can ask the question.
Hello. Madam, when we are doing the internship in a company or an industry, we get an idea to improve a certain task that is being done already, or some kind of development. If we get a basic idea of developing something, and should we just say it out loud, or do we like inform it to our superior, to our supervisor, or how should we go with that?
So Tilangi, sometimes when you see things and just tell it there, they might take offense, because in some companies, like I have been doing this for the past 10 years. How come you are here? You go here only 1 month and you are telling me this kind of attitude can come, right? So it's best that anyway, when you go there, you will understand who would be receptive to new ideas. Most probably your supervisor. So usually you are appointed a supervisor, right? So what you can do is you can ask the supervisor, we have some few ideas. I'll make a 2-page proposal, or if you have time, I'll do a presentation and explain. We have some improvement ideas for your department. Would you like to hear them? Would you like to appoint someone else so that we can talk? So go through that route might be the best. Who is doing that job today might not be the right person to say, look here, the way, there's a better way of doing your job. Might not be the best way.
Yes, madam. Okay. Thank you.
Can go to the next question. I think we're running out of time also. So
Chiranshri Hilavitana, now you can ask your question.
Madam, at the end of the interview, we are usually asked what salary do we expect. So how can we negotiate this without giving a bad impression about us?
right. So what you can do is, one thing is you can first, if there are people who work in that company that you know from the previous batch or so you can ask them also, right? And know what the going rate is. However, before giving a number, the first thing you can say is, you can say something like this: as you are a reputed company, I am sure you have particular salary brackets and such. So I'm sure you would have a compensation structure. However, this is what I'm expecting, and you can tell your number. But that number, you better understand what the kind of going rate in that company first.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. My contact details are there, so any of you guys, you can contact me and ask your questions even after this. I'll try my best to answer your questions. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and asking me questions. So my last thing is, be desperate to be your best, right? It should be your best. That I know the Steve Jobs says, be hungry, be hungry, be young, or something, right? So be desperate to be your best. It's nothing else. And go grab it, be impactful and be happy. And that's what matters. You all are really intelligent. That's why you have been selected. and you are here, and now you have a lot of knowledge. Be impactful and be happy. And thank you very much for giving me this time, and wish you guys all the best.
Thank you very much, Sithila.
Thank you very much, Madam, for the valuable and insightful address to our topic today, ready to step out to the industry. That was tremendously informative and thought-provoking for all of us. And I'm pretty sure our audience learned a lot from you. And also, thank you very much, Madam, for sharing your invaluable experiences gathered in your exemplary journey so far. Your explanation for our questions were easily understandable and reassuring. We believe now our audience has an idea of what awaits them after this degree and how to be ready to excel at it. And now I would like to invite Mr. Themia Purupuge, the President of the Society of Chemical and Process Engineering Students, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Hashini. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor on behalf of SCAPES to propose a vote of thanks speech and acknowledge the contribution of everyone who dedicate their time and energy to making this a reality. First, I would like to express my gratitude to our guest speaker, Ms. Sithila Dissanayake, for not only sparing her invaluable time for us to grace this occasion, but also for enlightening us with a commendable talk on the subject. Thank you, Madam, for putting in your best effort to make this event an unforgettable one. Special thanks goes to Dr. Anushka Ilangasinghe, Head of the Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, for introducing and conducted our renowned guest speaker for our session today. Next, I would like to thank our beloved academic staff of the Department of Chemical and Process Engineering and Director of Industrial Training and Career Guidance Unit, Dr. Shamali, for their valuable contribution and encouragement in all our efforts. Last but not least, I thank all the participants who join us today and committee members of the SCAPES. Without your presence, this event would not have been a success. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Themia. And thus we have come to the end of this amazing session. Hope you all had a wonderful time with us. Thank you everyone for joining us today amidst your busy schedules. So with the hope of meeting you again on another memorable day with an inspiring topic, it's time for us to wind up today's session. Good night, everyone, and stay safe.